Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host. And today, again, it is Sunday. This is a pre-recorded video. And as you see, I'm wearing my Sunday shirt, my holy Levi shirt, my holy jeans Sunday. So, I have the honor and pleasure of welcoming back Noel Benoist. If you don't know that name, you may have heard of his co-author, Ted Gunderson, the late FBI agent who potentially, maybe, allegedly was assassinated for being a whistleblower. As you see from the banner that I showed you, they co-authored the book, The 200-Year Plan. I've had Noel on my show. He's, just a world-renowned jack of all trades. He's been in movies with Sharon Stone, Gene Hackman, Leonardo DiCaprio, Quick and the Dead, and some other movies as well. But his most infamous, hang on. Oh. All right. Gotcha. Sorry about that. I had to take that. So, he was a part of the National Security Administration, Majestic 12. If you don't know what Majestic 12 is, that was supposedly or allegedly politicians, military people, and people in the industrial complex, whatever that looks like, whether research or development, that came together and pretty much interacted between the United States and foreign entities not of this planet. He's also a man in black. So we look forward to all of that upcoming. But today's show, we're going to talk about the John F. Kennedy story. So this is, it's going to blend. You're going to hear a little bit about RFK. I'm sure you hear some about Edward Kennedy, other Kennedys, and other individuals. But this video, we're going to cover John F. K. The next one, we're going to cover Robert F. K. And then the next one, we're going to cover Senator Edward Kennedy. So we're going to do all three Kennedys. We're also going to do MLK. We're going to cover MK Ultra. So we're going to give you a bunch of little, I don't know how little they're going to be or how short or how long, but we're going to do some shows with Noel and we're going to start documenting this because if you see from the banner, this is a book that I am co-authoring, putting together with Noel to tell his story, tell the truth, put it out there so everybody can read it with their own eyes and then make their own determinations. And without further ado, let me welcome the infamous Noel Benoist. How you doing, sir?
I'm too stubborn to quit, so every day I wake up in this life breathing, I'm doing fine.
Right, absolutely. All right, well, we're going to get into John F. Kennedy, and I don't know how far back you want to go. If you want to go back to his, his naval days when he was in the Navy, or if you want to go back before that and give a little background on the Kennedy family in whole, how they kind of garnered such authority, political activism, how they became wealthy, and kind of coalesce that into the whole JFK story.
There you go. Well, as a matter of fact, after I actually met John Kennedy at the Whiskeytown Dam dedication, and that's a little bit north of Reading. And at the time I lived in Central Valley below Shasta Dam. And it was, once again, the Lord just set everything up and it flowed the way God wanted it to. Because I went down and bought a black suit, felt directed by God to do it. Went to the tailor, he told me to go to. The tailor had a guy who had ordered a black suit and then didn't pick it up. And he said, I could have that altered for you in an hour. Sold it to me cheap. And it was basically an exact duplicate of a black suit that the Secret Service wears. And I parked on 299 and walked in, and walking in, two black suits are coming out, and I'm a 17-year-old football player, but most people guessed me to be about 24 to 28. And matter of fact, even then I was actually the ID checker and bouncer for the Hilltop Lounge at 17 years old, and they didn't even check my ID. But after meeting him at Whiskeytown Dam and actually being able to spend a little time with him, I got very interested in Kennedy, and because I could just tell that there was just something about him that other people don't have. And I think he sensed something about me. And I think it was a spiritual thing, because I actually went up and I covered about 3 or 4 different areas. They thought I was Secret Service covering it. And he came up toward the end of the area where he was shaking hands and shook my hand. And then he looked back at me 3 or 4 times. And I thought, God, what are you showing him? So I went down in between the podium and where the band and the press and all that is. And that's how I ended up carrying top secret messages, hotline messages, etc. Because the guys down there thought I was one of them. And the guy wanted me to take a message and put it on the hotline. I said, okay. I said, who do I tell him wants it? And the guy gave me his name. And I said, you'll have to buzz me in. So he had him buzz the gate. So now I'm in presidential top secret red phone area. And God had that. Don't let me forget, there's a separate story as far as how that goes later, because that was kind of a setup for something later, and having badges now. But he came around the podium, and he looked at me, he says, where are you from? And I said, I'm from our other dam, Mr. President. I've got a home about 3 miles below Shasta Dam. And I said, if you want some of the best sturgeon fishing in the world after the election, come see me. I got an 18-foot glass bar. A friend of mine's got a 26-foot cabin cruiser, and we got a 26-foot blimp on his fish finder. And we tied into a sturgeon one time that was literally towing that cabin cruiser into deeper waters. We finally had to cut the line because he was going to pull the back of the ship under. And so he took my name and phone number, and he said, would you like some pictures? And I said, God, I'd love some pictures, but I don't have a camera. And he said, well, do you got anybody here who does have a camera? And I said, well, I know a couple of the guys in the press box and stuff. He said, okay. He said, we'll pose by Marine Helicopter 1, and this will be posing and pictures for you. And I said, okay. So I went to one of the guys and I said, I'll pay you for the film. The president's going to pose by Marine Helicopter 1. I don't have a camera, so the pictures are mine and they're for me. But I'll pay you developing, and you can have a set, but they're my pictures. And he said, okay. And just in that little meeting, I mean, I got close to President Kennedy in a way that there was just an attachment. I mean, we were linked. And so I started studying more on him, and his PT boat and his event on the island and everything. And later when I got into more official records and all the things that he did, how he took care of his men. And anybody having a hard time making it to the island, he swam back out to help them in. He went back out and made sure every one of his guys got in and was safe. And that's the kind of person he was.
Got in where? What island?
Into the island. Made it safe to the island from the PT boat that got sunk.
Oh, okay, yeah, PT 109.
Yeah, there were a couple of guys who were having a little bit of a hard time, and he went back and got them. And he was one of those guys. He was kind of like my dad in a lot of ways, because my dad basically told his guys in private they could call him Tom. They didn't have to call him sir or colonel. And every Friday he had a commander's hour that was just wide open. And so he was a friend to the guys who followed him, but he was also a commander that they respected, because he knew his stuff. And if he made an order, you better follow it. You know, he would be a friend to you, but don't cross him. And I guess I kind of picked that up off my dad too.
Okay.
You know, the ethics were there as well as the command, you know, and I'm still that way today. I will work with people, but if they cross me, you know, I matter of fact, some of the work that was being done here, I finally had to climb on the guy and had a little go round or whatever. And he came in and did some stuff after that. And we got some more scheduled because my place was torn apart by weaponized weather and everything. But it really got, and of course, the Papa Kennedy, he was basically involved in illegal booze. They made their money in the illegal booze trade. And
Allegedly.
but yeah, but the children, John, Bobby, and Ted all wanted to make up for that. You know, it was kind of like a person. You know, we'd mess up in our life and we repent and then we try to make up for our mess ups. And his three boys, all three of them, were going to try to make sure they made up for everything that Papa Kennedy was involved in.
Well, there were four brothers. One passed away, the oldest.
Yeah. But the three that were living, in other words, basically John and Bobby and Ted, they wanted to make sure that the more or less the record was cleared and there was a positive rather than a negative as an end result. And
Right.
Of course, they were working together with Martin Luther King to try and get things done there. And they were working all the way across the board, basically for truth and justice. And I know for a fact that Kennedys loved the way it used to be too. See, before, it used to be that in the Senate and in the Congress, they would get a schedule of topics to cover. And both Democrats and Republicans had to argue for and against each and every issue like a debate. And then they would decide who won the debate, and the winners had lunch for free, and the losers paid for the lunch out of their expense account. You know, so, but it made them understand all sides. And they used to put a cover letter with the law describing the spirit and intent of the law, and then they let judges put the final legal polish on the law. Today, we've got a bunch of politicians who are all attorneys, and they went to the letter of the law. And from the time of going to the letter of the law and no longer having that back and forth debate to present day, we've got a mess. We need to go back to the debate system. Radical Democrats are no good. Radical Republicans are no good. Anybody who wants to basically rule the world and be on top, there's a problem. We are supposed to be, and this is the way that my dad raised me, I know this is the way John Kennedy was. We in leadership positions are servants to the ones we lead. We cannot lead properly if we're not serving them, because what are we leading them into or away from? We're supposed to be leading them into good stuff and away from bad stuff. So that requires a lot of extra hours. So if a person wants to be a leader and they're not willing to put in the hours, go find a job at McDonald's or someplace, because you're not going to do any good for anybody anywhere. But after meeting him there and everything, and then studying his background, and then when he was killed, as I got deeper into intelligence, I was very interested in everything I could find on the Kennedys. Well, when I hit seat 13, so that if one of the 12 was missing at a meeting, I would take a seat. And so that if one of the 12 died, I would be permanently in a seat. At that point, I got carte blanche access. And people didn't know it, but actually our most secret base was the base that used to belong to Hitler that we couldn't find. And it was so good, we decided to turn it into our base. And it was in a little town, a very small town, and not too terribly far from Fürth, the Nuremberg area, which of course was one of Hitler's main areas. And it was called Herzl Base. Now later they turned Herzl Base into a regular military base with like armor and all that stuff. But that's because when I got out, I blew the whistle. And so they had to change their name and change their base in order to hide. And they went down toward the Stuttgart, Munich area and Chiemsee and all that. They didn't know I knew where they went. But when I got in there, I had this little room that I had access to, and records were in that room going all the way back to the 20s, and some of them all the way back to the teens. And we had a great big, like a press and in there, and you could put, great big good sized boxes. You could put about, probably 4, let's say 3 to 4 foot boxes, put 4 of them across every direction. So you'd have maybe 1 row of boxes on there that would be about 16 feet, probably by 16 feet. And you could put that 2 rows high, so you could make it about 10 foot high. And this great big press setup would come down on that and literally turn all of those boxes of papers into pulverized powder and blow it into a furnace. So that room could be cleared of every bit of intelligence with nothing usable in less than 5 minutes. And of course, our guys outside could hold everybody off for 5 minutes or more. So if the enemy came across, they'd have nothing. And I went in there and I had access to it, and I was absorbing everything in it because that was also the time for the Czechoslovakian crisis. And people didn't know it, but the Czechoslovakian crisis was almost World War III. And they had all of their panzer divisions in the invasion valley. And we knew that if they launched an effort, they would have taken Germany in probably 2 hours or less. And we would have been landing at Normandy again. That's how dangerous that one was. And I did something that basically stopped that. But the main thing here is Kennedy stuff. I got into all of the John Fitzgerald Kennedy stuff, and I found out everything that was done. Basically, they were using the mob as their hitman for a long time up until Kennedy. When the mob connections were exposed in the Kennedy assassination, and a lot of questions came up, then they started using snipers, recruiting them into the CIA. And basically from Kennedy on, the CIA became the hit team, the kill team. And they still are the hit team or kill team today. The CIA doesn't really have any legal operations in the U.S. All of their so-called legal operations are supposed to be outside the U.S. But there again, that's for deniability. And so I found out that mainly what they did, they knew that Kennedy, matter of fact, I found out later too, that Kennedy spoke at I think it was a university in, where it was, university somewhere back east. It might have been Harvard or one of those, Harvard and he spoke about MJ-12, a secret organization that was building a government within, and how he was going to put it to an end. And unfortunately, disclosing that set the works in motion for them to orchestrate his end. So they found a marksman or a sharpshooter who wasn't really connected to the mob or anybody else, named Lucien Sardy. He was a French paid assassin who was an independent contractor. And I think the mob put him on to him So they gave him a different name, etc., and they gave him a Secret Service ID. Now, if people check it out and they check some of the testimonies and stuff, they will find that a Dallas policeman saw a black limo behind the fence by the grassy knoll, and he went and asked the guy for an ID, and the guy gave him a Secret Service ID. Because the guy had a Secret Service ID, he did not ask to see what was in the black briefcase. The 9mm sniper bullet has an air bubble in it, so it hits anything hard, it explodes. And the whole plan of how they were going to do it was in that file. Oswald wanted to be a CIA agent. And so they told him, well, one of his first deals, he could check presidential security at Dallas. He had to take this rifle, aim it at the president, and he had to aim it at the president so that their microphone would pick it up, and the microphone could tell if it would have been a kill shot. So they wanted him to aim in a way that would be a kill shot. And they said, don't do anything other than the rifle will be there waiting for you. There's no time to mess around. You've got to pick up that rifle, aim it, and fire it because everything is timed. Well, I think he kind of felt a little bit odd about it and kind of questioned what was going on. So instead of aiming actually directly between the shoulders, like on the neck area, he aimed a little toward the shoulder, and he knew, but they knew no matter where he hit him, that would make Kennedy slump forward. When Kennedy slumped forward, that gave Lucien Sardis a shot from behind the fence into the fleshy area of the neck, where then it would enter the flesh and not explode yet, but as soon as it hit the skull, it would explode. The explosion gave the appearance of a high velocity bullet coming from the front. So now you got your ballistic experts looking where the sound was up at the suppository and where in front of Kennedy, where there might be somebody with a high-powered rifle. And that was their whole thing. They called a lot of their operations magic, like Magic Operation Number 1, Magic Operation Red Dog, etc. And they would always have magic on it. And to see a lot of their stuff, you have to have top secret crypto, which is all the codes and espionage. Access to special intelligence gave me magic eyes only access included in special intelligence. And that's when I got the carte blanche deal. And so that's how they basically set it up and killed him. And if people could get the first doctor who had a press conference, held up the magic bullet and described how it went, but then he lifted his other hand. He said, however, we also have brass fragments of a bullet we cannot explain. That is from the 9mm sniper bullet that exploded because of the air bubble when it hit the skull. And I heard that Lucien Sardis died just a while back and that he confessed being the shooter behind the fence. And he told the people that just in case he ever had to prove it, he bit the 9mm sniper bullet casing and tossed it onto the grassy knoll. And I was told they sent people over with a metal detector and they found a 9mm bullet casing on the grassy knoll with a bite mark. So that validates. I've told this story now for ever since '69. When I told it to Congressman Burton, I told it to Biz Johnson at the time, etc., and got them working with me on some stuff. Matter of fact, they worked with me on what became the 1980 Motor Carrier Act and some other stuff. And so I've been telling the same story for decades. And now more and more evidence has come out to prove that it's true. So everything that I've been putting out is now, and I was called a fraud, a fake, delusional, you name it. I've gone through all the stuff. They've tried to use smear and fear on me the same way they've tried to use it on Trump. And they try and use it on anybody who is their enemy. I designed it to use against real enemies. But MJ-12, their perception is anybody that doesn't want them to rule the world, that's a real enemy. And the Democrats signed on with them because when I got back to stateside, I was a JFK advocate and Democrat. And the funny thing is, actually, the Republicans recognized that JFK was right, and the Republican platform adapted the JFK, this is what we need. And then the Democrats said, oh, we can't all be on the same side. No, we've got to be more liberal. That's when the Democrats went more liberal. They should have just stayed on the same side and got a lot of stuff done. And they'd have had credit too. But that's when the split happened. And when I got back, they said they would get me elected to the Senate. I said, you can't guarantee that. They said, yeah, we can. I said, how so? They said, we will spread rumors about your opponent. And then shortly before the election, we will accuse the opponent of those rumors being true, and people will be afraid to vote for your opponent. I said, wait a minute. I said, that is smear and fear that I designed. I said, you're going to destroy the reputation of a human being who might be able to do great things for America in order to guarantee me the Senate position. They said, yeah, all's fair in love, war, and politics. And then they laughed about it. And I said, not in my book. I said, I've got ethics. And I told them, I said, take my name off the rolls. And I walked out. And so then I ran a write-in campaign for state Senate. And I put in there, America needs to return to God and country, family values, truth and honesty. And I said, libel and slander laws must be applied to elections so that other people cannot lie about their opponent just to win the election. And I campaigned for that, and I know I wouldn't get elected, but I wanted to get the issues heard. And I wanted to plant a seed that would be a matter of record, And one of the things I had is marijuana does have some medical value, but it also has some medical dangers. Because if people smoke too much marijuana, it does have an effect on their memory. People under the influence of marijuana will think that they did something they didn't do, and they'll think they didn't do something that they did do, because the mind becomes a little bit delusional, So anybody for medical marijuana really needs very close supervision to see what's going on with their mind. And I did some experimentation and scientific experimentation with that, and played with it a little bit myself and checked it out. And afterwards, I did memory exercises and memory games to check my memory and to rebuild my memory. So I documented everything. Matter of fact, I gave a report to Shasta County, the probation department and stuff, for the government to use, and they loved my full report. So yeah, and it's all a matter of record if people want to check it out, But yeah, JFK, they said, and matter of fact, when I got in, I asked them, I said, why did you guys orchestrate the death of JFK? They said because he was going to basically expose them and defund them. And they said, Kennedy will never again be president. And I said, "Oh man," I said, "that's pretty heavy duty." And then Ted Kennedy was going to run, and I heard the whole plan that Ted Kennedy will never make it. He won't be there. He'll either be dead or disgraced. And they laid out the Chappaquiddick plan because Mary Jo was paid $5,000, promised a trip and a home in an area that has no extradition, and they were going to give her $75,000 a year for the rest of her life. she had to go to Ted Kennedy at the party, tell him that she's having a miscarriage and her medication is at home, and the only way to home was going through the Chappaquiddick area. They dusted his steering wheel, and this can be scientifically checked. Speed and PCP will absorb through the skin. They dusted his steering wheel. They knew his driving habits. They had his psychological profile. They had his physiological profile. And they dusted his steering wheel so that every time he touched the steering wheel, he was getting more. And they knew he would OD at Chappaquiddick. So then he looks out and sees the boats out in the water. And all of a sudden, he's not in a car, he's in a boat. That's why they went straight off the pier. The thing they didn't count on was the cold water of Chappaquiddick waking him up enough for him to get out of the car.
Okay. We'll get into that Kennedy story later.
Okay. So
there you go, off track.
Yep. Well, they kind of tie together because of John Kennedy
I get it.
assassinating him, and then they were hell-bound for election or whatever. No Kennedy ever will be a president again. And to me, this is supposed to be the highest branch of law enforcement, basically committing the highest, most demonic form of treason. Assassinate a president of the United States, and then when Bobby was running, boom, they go after him, and they go after Ted when Ted decides to run. To me, every one of those 12, basically, the penalty for treason is hanging, and I think they ought to be hung, and then circulate a picture. Let people who are thinking about doing something like that in the future see where they end up.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that matter. And it's like, look, I don't want to see anybody executed and killed, because I know that, I've clearly stated on my show, Texas has executed innocent people. I know they have. Right. They're getting ready to execute another one, John Falk. So, yeah.
I had one of them ask me one time, one interviewer, they asked me, well, do you believe in the death penalty then? I said, yeah. And they said, well, what about, it's wrong to murder, it's wrong to kill. And I said, murdering somebody, an innocent person, that's wrong. But I said, it's a matter of responsibility to put the killing or wrong to an end with just one more death. They had a guy that was in prison, and he ended up getting paroled. He killed 24 more people before they caught him again. Those were all innocent deaths. And I told him, I said, I wouldn't mind being wrongfully convicted and being wrongfully executed, as long as I knew the guilty ones were getting the same, because there's no real deterrent unless that punishment is there. And I said, with me, I know I'm innocent, so I'm going to be in heaven. So if I got hung wrongfully, it's only going to last momentary, and then I'm in heaven with the Lord. And it's great there. Martyrs who were martyred for the Lord. Peter, crucified upside down. He was innocent. When they wanted to crucify him, he said, I'm not worthy to be crucified right side up. Crucify me upside down. And he had no problem with that. Right? Look at James and all the rest of them, So it's sad that we don't have a perfect society and that we can't really tell the innocent and the guilty all the time. But that's one of the reasons we've got to take care of this deep state and put them to an end, because they are the biggest assassination group of innocent people. They frame innocent people. That's, I don't know, that one case, I mean, they might be involved in that case that you're talking about, because who knows? That person may have talked to somebody about MJ-12 or whatever, may have inside knowledge.
Oh,
And,
no, the person I'm talking about, I was in prison with them. And yeah, I'll tell you the little quick story. Jerry Martin, he landed on the wings, the cell block that I was on. And as soon as I met this guy, I knew straight knucklehead. This dude's nothing but trouble, And when you say that about somebody in prison, that's really putting a jacket on them.
Yeah.
So I avoided the guy. And of course, he got in trouble having a relationship with a nurse, and they locked him up. So when he got out, he hatched a plan with a guy who used to be in the cell next to me, John Falk, who had done over 20 years flat for a murder and was doing a life sentence. So he was getting ready to come up for parole. More likely than not, he had done enough time. He was probably going to go home, but they decided they wanted to escape. So, yeah. So this was their plan, that when they were out in what they call the field squad, garden squad, hose squad, whatever you want to label it, it's a bunch of people out there with hose. Okay. They call them Aggies. They're like heavy duty hose.
Yeah.
And they're flat weeding, sideline, and whatever, taking care of the turn rows. Well, there's usually anywhere from 8 to 30 people per squad, just depending on, the unit. And they have one officer per squad. Then they have what they call the high rider, who sits away from all the group of offenders and their correctional officers with a long gun. So
yeah,
he's the one.
Sniper.
Yeah, she's supposed to be their sniper. Well, Falk went up to hand his watch to Officer Jefferson. Jefferson reached over to get it, and when he did, Jerry Martin went around the other side of the horse and pulled out his .357 service revolver. So that had probably 5 or 6 rounds in it, 6 max, 5 maybe. So they take off running for this Huntsville, Texas municipal utility truck. They make it to the truck, but in the meantime, there's this major shootout. In this major shootout, this happened within the prison grounds. Okay. This wasn't like outside. Usually they have agriculture outside the prison.
Right.
Well, this was actually inside the prison within the fenced area. So they actually went the wrong way when they left the prison unit. They went into town instead of jumping on the freeway. They drove right into town, a bank that's a block away from the sheriff's office. And somehow, with those 5 rounds, they killed the high rider, Susan Canfield, who was the furthest away from them. Remember, Falk's been locked up 20 years. When's the last time this guy fired a handgun?
Yeah.
Accurately. Jerry Martin, who the hell knows about that clown? But that's how Falk got caught up. Jerry Martin, they both got sent to death row with a kangaroo court in Walker County, Texas. Both got sentenced to death. Jerry Martin gave up his rights to appeal, waived them. They executed him. Falk's still fighting his case.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
So, I know it's a crazy story. So, they're going to execute him, and no way they killed her. The actual other officers are the one who killed Canfield in this. Because all the inmates, the offenders, they're all witnessing everything that's going on. They're all on the ground, but still paying attention to all the chaos,
right?
And all the other officers out there, they all have these .357 revolvers, 5 or 6 shots, and I'm sure they all emptied their guns on these clowns because they said there were bullets flying everywhere.
Yeah, because those .357 revolvers, they got one whale of a kick.
Yeah. And I don't know if when they were captured, whether or not they had expended all their ammunition in that particular firearm, or if they still had ammunition left. It's a big old questionable thing. They just covered that. Yeah, it's sad. But that's how you do. I know we're getting off topic, but
perfectly, he'll get his life right with the Lord.
Yeah. So let's get back to Kennedy now. What can you tell us about the assassination per se? The the pre-assassination planning, if there was any, who ran that operation, what agency, multiple agencies.
Ruby was involved, and basically they were afraid that Oswald would talk. And of course, remember when they captured Oswald, Oswald said, "I did not shoot the president." Right? Mm-hmm. And so, because as far as he was concerned, he didn't load the gun with live ammo. So it wasn't him shooting the president, it was whoever put the live ammo in there. And but when Kennedy slumped forward, he realized he had live ammo, and that's why he took off the way he did. But they had Ruby and everything; they had that all set up to basically make sure that that none of the info would get out. Oswald wouldn't have a chance to talk to anybody. And one of the Texas cops that should have prevented Ruby from getting to Oswald, was involved. They basically told him, hey, they will try to convince people. So they told him, hey, man, this guy deserves to die because he killed the president. We can save $1 million trial and appeals and everything.
Right.
So we're going to take care of him. And Oswald doesn't, or Ruby doesn't care if he goes to prison, and he can claim temporary insanity. So they set all this stuff up so everybody would think that it wasn't all that bad. It was really serving justice. And they play him for a patsy. And then the cop that was there that should have stopped Ruby, he's not going to say that he was involved. So they know he's going to stay, shut up, not say anything. And then they use their power for the Warren Commission thing to be the official report. And it wasn't even close to being true. No matter where it came, the Warren Commission report, that disagreed with a high velocity shooter. It disagreed with the shooter behind the fence. It disagreed with the magic bullet. There was nothing that could really agree with the Warren report, right. But they slid that by. That's the official report,
Okay, so who set up the assassination of John F. Kennedy?
Yeah, well, one of their sergeant at arms for a long time was
who's there?
MJ-12. In other words, the 12. Yeah, the 12 at that point in time, the 12 they formed in 47, and the 12 main people were solid by about 52, 53, 54. As a matter of fact, I got some of the names of the original 12, and I looked on there to double check myself. And one of the original 12, there were like 3 or 4 of them that really wanted to do it right. And they were influencing some of the others. Mm-hmm. So if you check the names of the original 12, you'll find that 3 or 4 of them died within the first 4 or 5 years. Those were the ones who wanted to do stuff right and trying to influence others. So by 1951 or 52, MJ-12 was basically becoming deep state. They were starting to form the government within. And the FBI director, I said his name earlier, I had 2 weeks or a week of missing time. They messed me up on names, but doggone it. The FBI director at the time, I mentioned his name. You remember what I said his name was?
Which director?
The FBI director.
Oh, J. Edgar Hoover.
J. Edgar Hoover, yeah. I should remember that because Hoover down. But yeah, J. Edgar Hoover was more like their sergeant at arms for a long time. And J. Edgar Hoover focused on getting dirt on every politician in D.C., on every governor, and on every representative within the states, so that he could use that to influence them to go along with what they wanted. And he was their basic blackmailer.
So he's the one who set up the entire JFK assassination?
He was involved in it. They said what they were going to do, and then he was involved in basically assigning people where the hole would be open, getting people to look the other way. J. Edgar Hoover probably talked to the Dallas cop who should have prevented Oswald and said, hey, look, man, this plan is going on. You know, we don't like this son of a gun. We don't want to spend money on him. And we don't want to be feeding him for the rest of his life in prison. And to get the guy to look the other way and tell him, we've got it set up. Don't worry, because then Ruby, we'll get him off with like temporary insanity. He loved the president so much because remember, some of the records show Ruby basically hobnobbed with some of these people in the bar and everything the night before Dallas. You know, they were hobnobbing and having their party, getting ready for the next day because they were sure their plan would work. And Kennedy, they knew Kennedy liked being more in touch with the people, more visible to the people. Kennedy did not like riding in a bulletproof vehicle. So they used that against him, you know. And so, and then they had basically CIA ready for backup. They've always got plan A, B, C, and D, and E, and F, you know, so that they can switch if they need to. But the one that they carried off was the primary plan. And unfortunately, because of the way things were and the power that they had, people were really afraid of, people in the government were afraid of MJ-12 at the time because they knew that group really had power. They would be the political death of you. And they knew that they had already taken care of a few world leaders one way or another. So, and that's the kind of stuff that they did or orchestrated. But they wanted to orchestrate it because they wanted deniability. And then their excuse for not telling the president the whole truth was, number one, he might be a communist. So we can't tell him the whole truth. If he's not a communist, if he's pro-America, then he needs deniability. So if he doesn't know, he can deny knowing. And then we can put off the facts being found anything more than what we can easily take care of. And that was the way they operated. And then as the other 3 or 4 that were in the original group, as they killed them off, then they brought in more of the military industrial complex. So by 52, the mob was one of the leaders, and they were in charge of the hit group. After Kennedy, they started recruiting snipers to join the CIA as the kill team. And we had one of our guys that volunteered for that, and he got transferred to CIA to become one of the kill team. And so then CIA became the kill team, and the mob was put out, but they couldn't put them out totally right away because the mob had too much information on them. So they had to take care of information and mobsters more or less one at a time, getting mobsters to go against mobsters, to kill one of the competitors for them, and then they basically think that person thinks he's going to be the next mob leader, like Gotti, etc. And so then they would turn that person over to the rest of the mob as being the one that did it, and then the rest of the mob would take care of that person. And that's why basically from 45 or 47, that range, from that realm, for about maybe 20 years or so, there were quite a few mob hits. And then they went after the last mobster who knew a lot about it, which was, I think that was Gotti. And they finally got him in prison, etc. So.
What's your knowledge about George H.W. Bush's involvement in the Kennedy assassination, if any at all?
The older Bush was one of the members of the Illuminati. And the older Bush, to some degree, felt powerless to do anything. He wasn't so to speak, pro, he wanted to more or less get together with Kennedy and convince Kennedy, hey, look, don't go that way. We need these guys. They're doing a good work. We just got to change how they're operating. But he was also not lifting a finger to prevent it. And he allowed some of his people to be more involved than what he should have allowed. So then he kind of like turned a blind eye the other way. But the younger Bush president knew that some of that was going on, and the younger Bush wanted to make up for it. And that's why I actually dealt with the younger Bush. And I told him, I said, these guys have been around and they've been doing this stuff because your dad was involved in it, the Illuminati and all that group. And it's some bad stuff. And I told him, I said, and he actually wanted to clear it up. And I said, if you're not doing what they want, they will hang you out to dry and embarrass you. And the problem with DC is they all think they can take care of it their way. And MJ-12 has designed an organization that survives the DC way. And I told Bush, I said, you need to form a new agency. And I told him, I said, manpower it with people we can trust. And then issue another executive order that henceforth, no matter what your previous position, all agents and agencies will answer to the new agency. But before you do that, the new agency has to be people we can trust, and we have to have congressional oversight over the new agency. And then the new agency will have oversight over the people that we cannot have, congressmen and senators, knowing what's going on. So that we'll have indirect oversight, and then spies can't run wild. MJ-12 couldn't run wild because Congress could ask the new agency, Homeland Security, what's going on here? And you'd better dig into it and produce what's going on. And then Homeland Security would have to produce. Well, Bush made the mistake of issuing one executive order with both steps on the same order. So when he did that, MJ-12 knew their end was in sight. They prevented manpowering Homeland Security. Homeland Security should have been fully manpowered and operational within 6 months at the most. It actually could have been manpowered and fully operational in a month. And yet, it was not operational until Napolitano and Obama got in. And Napolitano and Obama were put in by all the influence that MJ-12 had, because then they guaranteed MJ-12 that they would put the leaders that MJ-12 wanted in position. And I told Bush when he did it that way, and when it went that way, I said, before we had a red Chevy, which kind of stands out more. Now we got a blue Chevy, but we still got a Chevy. And it's all got to be redone. The whole thing has got to be redone. And basically, they're going to have to completely outlaw. They're going to have to call in the MJ-12 group and their associates and have what will be similar to the Nuremberg trials. They're going to have to try them for treason, try them for horrific wrongs done against humanity. And they are responsible. This stuff, like when Maryvale, they had something like 26 or 27, I think it was leukemia cases all of a sudden. And the Center for Disease Control got involved. How is it that we've got all these cases all of a sudden? And they blamed it on the groundwater and everything. And one of the 17 disaster areas is in that area. But guess who was basically playing with all those chemicals? MJ-12 was allowing all of those chemical deposits to see what they would do. So then they know what chemicals to spray in order to induce leukemia, childhood leukemia, brain cancer, lung cancer, heart disease. There's about 20 deadly diseases that they can now induce. And in 1954,
Define
found,
spray.
pardon?
Define spray, because you said that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to now. In 54, they found a low frequency sound that they weaponized. They can hit a person with that and lower your immune system. And then these chemtrails in the sky, they go over the area where their target is, and they spray those chemicals in that area. And all of a sudden, that area will have 12, 20, 30, 40 of the same deadly problem that'll come to surface. Heart disease, leukemia, cancer, etc. And it's because everybody who had a weak immune system got hit with the spray, and that spray came out of the 17 chemical disaster areas. That's what, and the thing, they used those areas. They have killed, they are guilty of the death of probably well over 1,000 innocent Americans just in those disaster areas, and some of the what they call peripheral damage. Because I said, what about all the innocent people and innocent children? They laughed and said peripheral damage.
I'm sharing the screen.
Oh yeah, the chemtrail up there. Those are chemtrails right there. Yep, right. And then those chemtrails are spreading out. And those chemtrails seed all the clouds in the area. So then those chemicals are coming down in the rain, they're coming down in the atmosphere, they're coming down in the oxygen.
And this is one laying a chemtrail, and this is one flying out of bush. That's a passenger airline.
Yeah. See?
It's not leaving a contrail, a condensed trail, or a chemical trail.
Yeah. And the wide one, that wider one, is the smaller one expanded as the chemicals spread out.
Yep.
Yeah. So America, I mean, as far I believe that the count could actually be up in the millions. And as far as I'm concerned, every last one of those people should face the same thing that the Nuremberg trials faced.
Well, that's why we have so much early onset dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's.
That's right.
Cancer. All of these are coming from what they're spraying in the air. Most people, don't realize that. But
that's right.
I tell everybody this: there is no such thing. Okay, whether it's produce, an animal, a beverage that is 100% organic. It does not exist. Simply because chemtrails.
And this is one of three primary areas why they killed John Kennedy and Bobby and went after Ted, because John Kennedy was going to expose them and stop them, and they call the chemtrail thing good for the medical industry, good for the economy, and population control. And I told them, and I found out that they're stirring up wars. They're causing wars. They're training terrorists, stab them in the back. Bin Laden was trained by CIA. Then they stab him in the back and he becomes a terrorist. And they said, we will prove to the world that the world cannot get along without us. That's number one. Number two, I read this stuff. Kennedy was going to get rid of them. He was going to propose a world alliance, not a one world rule, but a world alliance for space exploration. And he was going to expose the ships that are in reverse engineering, that there is stuff out there. He was going to propose a space exploration economy, exploring space, sharing what we bring off of other planets, etc. and sharing that economy as a world alliance and partnership. And Kennedy is the only president that ever died. Every nation in the world sent their regrets. The Kennedy economy would have worked. So, them being exposed, the economy they want, which they also call population control, those three areas are there. Basically, strike 1, 2, and 3. Kennedy is dead. And then they got into MK Ultra after that, because they were going to make sure that they could make everybody feel like everything is wonderful. And they haven't released marijuana for the medical uses. They've released marijuana because in the countries where they smoke a lot of marijuana and opium and stuff like that, the people are no problem for the authorities. The authorities are the ones that stay straight, and then they get the people who are high to do what they want them to do. And basically, if somebody's high like that, being a slave, no big deal. They don't even realize it.
Okay, so Kennedy brought in the basically the NASA administration.
Yep.
Okay, so that came in from Werner von Braun in Operation Paperclip from Germany. After World War II, we brought in it was actually a competition between Russia and the United States,
yep,
and Germany to protect its own scientists, but to get in there and get that technology, to get that knowledge, get those researchers, right, and bring them back in the United States, without raising an uproar about letting Nazis run our space program. But that's basically what has happened. I've had the privilege of being in the training facility at the Johnson Space Center for, they got the Artemis thing that they have going right now. They have a mock space shuttle, the lunar modules there. They have spacesuits there, all on display. Because I had all access, I was able to just walk up and touch this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which when you see it and you touch it in person, you're like,
yeah.
Boy, did they sell a hog to the world. They sold a hog to the world, folks.
Yeah.
No way.
And one of my partners that helped with some stuff and info was Clayton Quarles. Clayton Quarles was one of the NASA scientists, and the first rocket went up, hovered, and then fell down and blew up. And they were all, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? It took Clay 5 minutes to draw the schematic for the spinning nose cone that stabilized the rocket.
Okay.
5 minutes, Clay drew that.
Yeah, this is off topic, but the creation of NASA, the NASA budget, and the capabilities of NASA, in my eyes, are highly questionable.
Oh yeah.
Here, these stranded NASA astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, reach major milestone in space because they just did 6 months in space. Why? Because they can't get back home, because NASA does not have the capabilities to go to the space station, pick up stuff, and come back. They're relying on the European Space Agency as well as SpaceX, which is Elon Musk. So in my eyes, there's really no need for NASA anymore. And I understand they have a lot of different offshoots like JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Ames Research, a bunch of different facilities. But what are they really researching? And because they're not talking about going back to the moon anymore. They're not talking about even going to Mars anymore.
Yeah.
So why would a country who has clearly conquered space, been to the moon, not gone back to the moon to harvest the resources off the moon? Why would you stop that program going from A to B and then creating a space shuttle that just basically does laps around the Earth and feed the space station?
Yep.
doesn't make sense, because you kind of digress, and now we've digressed even further to where we don't even have anything to go to the space station and do that cycle.
Yeah,
like
and
they
those answers are actually in their future planning and in reverse engineering at Roswell, and
Okay.
that's one of the reasons they want to rule the world and declare their alliances and allegiances the way they want. And apparently now they've got basically, I guess, some pilots who can think fast enough to fly some of the stuff they've got, and learned how to fly it to the degree where they can control it. The
Right.
ETs basically, they think faster than we do. You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Their mind processes stuff faster.
Well, we're dumbed down. I mean, that's just,
Yeah,
your
that's right.
pituitary glands calcified.
Yep.
You've been drinking fluoridated
Yeah.
water your entire life. So yeah, it sucks. All right, let me ask you this: the next potential culprit, Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ. Did he have any involvement in this? Did he set it up? Was he screaming for power?
He heard about it. He didn't believe it could happen. His unbelief made him a patsy. And when they did it, it scared the tar out of him. That's why he didn't want to run again. When he was in, he tried to do as many of the Kennedy programs as he could do, and did not want to run again because he did not want to deal with MJ-12. And basically, even though I'm in the ministry, I got to put it bluntly, he was scared shitless. You know, yeah, because they were good at doing that, because they basically told him they would grind everybody he loves into hamburger in front of him on a fishing trip, feed the hamburger to the fish, and he would see all that go before he went.
Absolutely.
And that kind of gets a person, especially when they did, and they got away with what they did to John Kennedy. When they got away with it, then Johnson was like, hey, I'm here for as long as I'm here, and let me out of here.
Right. He had his heyday when he was a senator and wielded all that authority and power up in DC. And then when he came VP, he was like, my star.
That's right.
Luster. And then he became president, and then he got that visit.
Yep. And the thing is, you saw a big difference in him after the JFK assassination. Huge difference.
Yeah. It looked like he really didn't want to accept that position as ascending to the presidency, but it is what it is. And
because he was scared, and he just did basically, they let him do some of the Kennedy stuff, and then bow out. And of course they used that then to also bring a lot of other senators and congressmen and stuff in line.
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now let me ask you this, because there's an important act that happened in 1964 that most people, they don't even think about this. Think about what Kennedy did, what his goals were as far as removing the Federal Reserve, have the United States create its own US dollar. But during LBJ's term, he enacted the Coinage Act and took the precious metals out of coins. So was that a direct order from the Illuminati, Majestic 12? Okay.
Yeah, they because they said those who hold the treasure in the latter days rule the world. That's another reason they're actually trying to use up foreign oil, because I know of an oil field and it's got a government cap on it. It has enough oil to supply America at our current usage with growth. Even if we had 2 world wars, that one field could supply enough oil for 3,000 years.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, and they said, hey, whoever has the treasure and controls the oil controls the world.
Right. And as technology improves, more discoveries will be found for all types of elements.
Yep.
So that's why you're seeing all these new discoveries of these multi-billion-dollar deposits of iridium and
Yep.
all this different,
Yeah. We ran a hydrogen power motor off of pure hydrogen, but now they're using a different splitter, which then makes it dangerous. And they want to use the hydrogen cars.
Explain splitter.
The hydrogen. Well, you've got hydrogen and oxygen.
Splitter. You said a hydrogen splitter, which makes
it splits the hydrogen oxygen molecule.
Right. Okay.
And it splits the oxygen off one way and the hydrogen off the other way. Mm-hmm. And that's how they get hydrogen for fuel for the space program, etc. Yep. But then Clay came up with that, and he ran in 1964, I think it was, Ford Falcon, coast to coast from basically Florida, NASA, to California and back to Florida on one 12-gallon tank of water.
With a hydrogen processor engine running on.
And the engine ran 24/7. So during the night, you could run lights off of like a little generator, etc.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you could actually have a AC/DC converter.
Right.
And do ship to shore and run your house, RV, whatever.
Right. But in the hydrogen program that's out there today, where a lot of people are trying to deal with and do hydrogen, they've got the wrong element that keeps the two elements apart. And the element they've got, because I actually did one on my Astrovan, and the Astrovan ran, and I got about 60 miles to the gallon running gas and hydrogen together, but it built up a gas pocket that blew the top off of the motor. And they're waiting to have some explosions so that they can scare people away from the hydrogen power situation.
Wow.
Yeah. So then that came from Clay, one of my old partners. Yeah, and I've got stuff on that. Yep. And that's another reason they're doing some of the stuff they're doing. And people have got to wake up. Look how much smear and fear they're using. And then on the other side, people get so desperate for something good, they use lusting for something good, so that basically they've got people that are being conditioned like Pavlov's dog. Ring the bell and they salivate.
Right.
Here it is. We'll give you this. They go for it and forget about the rest. Okay, we'll forget about that. I want this.
Right. What do you know about Kennedy's goal to remove us from the Federal Reserve and put us on just a U.S. dollar from the Treasury, if anything?
Kennedy, the Fed, matter of fact, I'll lay this out. The Federal Reserve back then got 5 cents per note, no matter what the note was, $1, $2, $5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, etc. They got 5 cents per note printed. Then they would cut the notes up, stack them. They would put it in the Federal Reserve. Now, we printed and paid for the printing of those notes. But then they borrow that money from the Federal Reserve to pay it back with interest. Now, I'll tell you what, I don't think it takes a math major to realize you're creating a hole there that can never be filled. You're printing to the money, then you're putting the money in your Federal Reserve, then you're borrowing it and paying it back with interest. There's no positive there. It's all negative.
Right.
That is the bottomless pit, more or less, And so Kennedy wanted to use precious metals and value and go with a straight up currency that is worth so much. And then as society, let's say you got a $5 gold piece. Well, a $5 gold piece from back when? Look what that's worth today.
Right.
So therefore, if we had the straight metal and this is what it's worth, what I could buy for $5 back then, I could buy for the value of that coin today. You stay on an even keel.
Right.
So silver, gold, platinum, and the precious metals to support our economy, along with diamonds, emeralds, rubies, etc. And then, as we assign more value, it also has more purchase power. So in actuality, things stay pretty level. Then we add space exploration, bringing new stuff in from outer space with value. Now we're putting positive into the bank. So now the positive side of our bank grows. So the stability of our economy grows.
Positive side of the bank. Explain that for people. What that
The
looks
positive
like.
side of the bank is in that you've got, let's say you've got $1 million worth of rubies, $1 million worth of diamonds, $1 million worth of emeralds, and you've got $1 million worth of gold, $1 million worth of silver, and $1 million worth of platinum, etc. And these are your main valuable sources. But now, out in outer space, we find some metal that could be used for the space program. And that metal, if it entered our atmosphere where everything else would burn up, that metal would not burn up. That metal would have an immediate assignment of value. So now maybe that metal, maybe gold is, let's say gold now is like $2,000 an ounce. And all of a sudden this metal is found, and this metal is extremely valuable because a 1/4 inch of it will protect every spaceship. It'll never burn up. So that metal is assigned a value of $50,000 an ounce. Now, all of a sudden, we've got $50 million worth of that metal in our bank, in our resources. Our positive side just grew by $50 million. And every time they bring us back to Earth, our resources on the positive side grow with it. For any and every metal or any and every jewel they might find out there, whatever they find, then our bank is growing because of the value of the items that are brought back from space. I hope that makes sense for everybody. It's deposits, added deposits instead of withdrawals.
Ah, okay. So, what, in your experience, your knowledge, what do you think about today's circumstances with Trump has come out, said, hey, it's the golden age, or get ready for the golden age? Are we going to an asset-backed currency here in the United States? Are we going to dissolve the Federal Reserve? Has the IRS merged into the Treasury? Is it still in existence? Yeah. Any of this knowledge base?
Well, I'm glad I got a communication from Trump. He said he wants me on a cabinet level, as a cabinet level member. And Trump needs me in DC because I know the past, present, and future of all the secret stuff. And so I can help guide in a way that we can totally shut down MJ-12 and a very bad future. And then we can use a lot of the stuff that Kennedy wanted, etc., and the good ideas that he had, as well as other good ideas that are forming, like Elon Musk has and stuff like that. And we can form a better, more secure future. Prayerfully, we are headed into like the golden age and the golden days, but we dare not relax enough or drop our guard enough, because basically the 200-year plan, those guys factored in a lot of advancements, and they factored in that they might have, be set back or have delays. And so they fully intend on coming back. That whole group does not believe they'll die. They fully intend on coming back. That's one of the reasons the Bible lets us know that lest no flesh be saved, Jesus is going to have to come back and finish it once and for all. But America can be safe, and Israel can be safe. And those countries that want to do things right, according to biblical principles, etc., according to the things that God laid out for us as legal, moral, and ethical values, we could be an alliance that is a safe zone for those who do not want to be part of the satanic one world. The seed of Satan will be established. So since we know that, then the only thing we can do really is make an alliance whereby America is the leader of the alliance. That's the New Testament promised land. And Israel is, say, second in place in that alliance. And the Muslims got a promise, if they do it right and do it peacefully. The Islamic thing is the radical jihad, the physical jihad, kill them all. Muslims believe God is a loving father, and most Muslims believe that they are like half brothers and sisters to the Hebrew children, and they know that the Hebrew, the Christians, and the Muslims worship the God of Abraham. So we actually have the same God. We've just got to work on some of the particulars a little bit. And so, and hey, I've actually had a lot of Muslims become Muslims for Christ because they realize God is the loving father. I told them, hey, a loving father who is all knowing, all powerful, is and who loves everybody, all of children, so much that he sends his only begotten son to do what nobody else can do. That father is going to provide a way for the family to come together. That father does not want his family killing one another, fighting, knockdown, drag out fights in the living room, etc. And Muslims have agreed with that. So there's now a big Hebrew Israeli move of Jews for Jesus, and there is now a big Muslim move of Muslims for Jesus, so that the three, Christians, Muslims, and Hebrew, can come together in Christ. And I showed him where Christ said he is the way. He's the door, he's the way. So he is the way for the three branches to come together as one. The same way three personifications, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, are together in one nature, perfect love. The same way we as a human being have three natures, flesh, soul, and spirit, but we are together as one personification. God can bring three and even more than three together as one. The God equation is 1 times 1 times 1, and you can take 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 a zillion times, and no matter where you stop and put the equal sign, the answer is equals 1. That's the God equation. And that is the equation that can bring the countries that want to follow the God of Abraham together as one, working together as one. And then we are the safe place for the children of God, because God said in his word, he will keep his children from suffering. But his children have to choose to accept the way that God wants to keep his children from suffering. And that is through Christ. But through Christ, we embrace the Hebrew history. Hey, you're Hebrew, you believe in Christ, he's your Messiah, then we're family. Hey, you're Muslim, you loved Muhammad and all that, but you know Christ is the way, you're Christian, Muslim, you're family. And we've got to come together that way. And that's what God wants in order for the rest of this story to come about. Because Satan's seat will be established, and then Christ returns to bring it down and to bring down Satan, the Antichrist, and the false prophet, and to deal with them. And then they're wrapped in chains, and we've got 1,000-year millennial reign. And 1,000-year millennial reign is going to be basically cleaning up the earth, and I'm positive space exploration will be in it. And we're going to have powers to do a lot of things that we can't do as humans now. As a matter of fact, when that happens, I'm positive we will be able to think as fast as the ETs. And in the original Hebrew language, the term for angel meant messenger from God. So a lot of those ETs out there are messengers from God, and the bad ones out there are fallen angels and fallen creatures that fell, that went with Satan, etc. The good and the bad have got to have some place to be and some place to stay. So you've got heaven, but you've also got a lot of stuff that God created in the heavens, plural. The original Hebrew in Genesis is plural, in the heavens. And as a matter of fact, there was a little misnomer in there, because when in Genesis 1, in the beginning was the word, in the beginning basically was the world, and it talks about the world being without form and void. The word for without form and void is tohu and bohu. The actual picture translation of tohu and bohu is a ruin, a desolation, which agrees with Isaiah when Isaiah said that God did not create the world chaotic, and all of the other prophets, etc., that talk about God creating the world with design, etc. And down in South Africa, or in South America, they found a stone door that had a Plegosaurus rex carved on it, and it's an ancient stone door. So when all of this stuff is happening and Adam and Eve are in the garden, number one, if dinosaurs are roaming around the earth, then Adam and Eve didn't need time. We don't know how long they were in the garden. Basically, God created time, and he started creating time for man. And then he lets the man write about the first day, but he also talked about a day as 1,000 years with God, to let us know that God's day has no real time. There is no time in the Lord, and there will be an era come where time is no more. So there's actually an era, BT, before time. That's when the dinosaurs and the angels and all that roamed the earth. And then there's an era where Adam and Eve were in the garden, and time was talked about in order to give birth to time, but we don't know exactly how long they were in the garden. They did find the human footprints of man in the La Brea tar pits, and they said that they were the human footprints of 20th century man with a dinosaur print that stepped over that footprint. So Adam and Eve look just like us. And science has now found a common gene in every man, woman, and child on earth. They've named it the Adam and Eve gene. So the whole creation story is true. We've just got some misunderstandings in how it's understood, how it's interpreted, and a few errors in translation. So we are coming to know more as time goes on. And people can't be totally locked into some of the things that are in there because they missed too much. So a day is as 1,000 years with God. Well, then you could take the 7 years of creation as 7 days of creation as 7,000 years. There was a 7,000 year transition period. There was a transition period when Christ was born until he became Messiah. So people have got to realize these things are factored in for good interpretation and understanding of who and what God is and God's plan for man. His plan for man is through Christ, but there's a lot of other stuff out there that isn't locked in stone.
Right. All right. We've been going for an hour and a half. Anything else you
Yeah.
want to add on the John F. Kennedy story?
John F. Kennedy was probably John F. Kennedy actually and Eisenhower and my dad were probably the three most influential experiences, meetings, and people in my life, followed up by a close fourth, which was my grandfather. And so I kind of attribute those four kind of like my four cornerstones. And then Christ is the chief cornerstone, became the chief cornerstone, as my building expanded.
Right.
So, but what that was done to him, people have got to demand that it be taken care of legally, and it's got to be taken care of in a way that there is something to discourage others from going there in the future. And that means people are going to have to be tried for treason. And the execution of treason is going to have to be carried out. We will do everything we can to make sure we've got the guilty, and it's the primary guilty ones who will be, going that route. Some of the pawns who were deceived, I could see them not having a death penalty.
Right.
The planners, MJ12 and that, quite frankly, if they want to make me the guy that pulls the lever that drops the trap doors, I would do it. I would do it. And I'm a man of peace. I love life, but that's one lever I would pull.
Be Johnny on the spot. I get it.
You betcha.
Let me ask you this about his wife, Jackie Bouvier Kennedy.
Oh yeah, that's an area there too. Yep,
it's a big area. So
yeah,
you want to cover that, or do you want to jump in and do a?
No, we can actually cover that fairly short because all these outfits are putting Marilyn Monroe having an affair with John Kennedy and with Bobby Kennedy and all that stuff. And what it is using smear and fear against the Kennedys and against Marilyn and against anybody in that whole realm. Because I saw all the documentation and everything else. And see, people, the mob and MJ12 people loved hobnobbing with Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley. As a matter of fact, on one of our shows, I've got a picture of Elvis that was, I think it was about 2021. And yes, Elvis survived. They used like a wax museum figure in their funeral and stuff. And I don't know if this preacher who's claiming to be Elvis is actually him or not. I saw a picture of him. Age could make him age a little more. The photo I've got, it's clearly Elvis, and it's time dated, and the gold records are in the back, and they let him get together with his old girlfriend. So, and he was a federal marshal, and there was a hit out on him. So they put him in the witness protection program. And I told him a couple times, I said, most of these guys are gone. Let the guy have some of his life back. So they finally have apparently let him have some of his life back. I'd like to meet this preacher guy that says he's Elvis. I could talk to him for a while and I'd know. Yeah, if I talked to him for a while, I'd know if he's the real McCoy. And but the one I got a picture of was definitely the real one, and it was after his alleged death. And Marilyn did die because she was panicking. See, I used the same thing that Kennedy's used in order to beat these guys. I would go after stuff, and then I'd make them think they won, and I would back up and back off. And then, as soon as they would relax, I would go after more until they would get hot and heavy, and then I would back up and relax. And John and Bobby Kennedy were doing the same thing. And they were using Elvis and Marilyn the same way. And the mob thought that Elvis and Marilyn both were not all that brilliant. Well, Elvis and Marilyn were both like me. I didn't learn by written. I'm a slow reader, but I retain a lot. But I learn audio visual. That's how I learned 6 years of German, including 2 dialects, in 6 weeks. Marilyn was like me. She could go to a meeting and hear everything the mobsters said, and she could relay it like a tape recording to Bob and Johnny and John. And Elvis was the same way. Jesse Helm forced Marilyn to have sex with him, or he was going to ruin her husband's career. But that's why she had basically problems in her marriage too, because she felt like less of a woman. But she felt her value was in doing what she was doing with John and Bobby, relaying everything that she could pick up from these other people. And so she kind of freaked out. They told her to back off. She was afraid they were going to leave her out to dry and she was going to be in danger. So she didn't die of a drug overdose. She was murdered. And the mob knew that. In fact, they found out she was basically passing information, and they weren't sure if Elvis was killed or not. They had nothing to prove one way or another, but they were going to make sure they got her. And MJ-12 gave them the all clear. But there was never an affair, because Jackie and John Kennedy, they really had that like King Arthur and Lady Guinevere, they had that Camelot relationship. As a dad, he was phenomenal. As a husband, he was phenomenal, and she loved him so much that really threw her psychologically when that happened. And if he was still alive, she would be with him. She never would have gone to Onassis or any of the other stuff that she did if he wasn't dead. Now, some people think that he's alive, but they don't know. MJ-12 has gotten into making doubles of a person and getting that person to, they will take imitators who are good at imitating somebody. They wanted me to get into that program because I used to do imitations of John Kennedy. And matter of fact, I did Rochester. I did Louis Armstrong. And matter of fact, Woody Strode loved me doing Louis Armstrong. I would get up and, hello, darling. Well, hello, darling. It's so good to have you back where you belong. You're looking swell, darling. And I used to do an even better imitation than that. It's been years since I did it. And they would get people who could really imitate a person really well. And if they had the features, they would do facial surgery, bone surgery, and everything else and make them look like that person so that they could substitute leaders and they could take out a leader who wouldn't cooperate, and then the substitute would take over. So people have got to be careful of that. And that's where DNA comes in handy. Yeah. Quite frankly, as Trump gets in, we want to do a bunch of DNA studies and compare it with the real DNA to make sure some of these leaders that are out there are not MJ-12 substitutes. They have that capability.
Yeah, I believe it in this day and age. They told us enough through their film and television of exactly what they're going to do or what they've done. Or
yeah, that's where that movie Face Off came from, you know, where they switched personalities and all that jazz, except they do it in a different way. They do it like basically physical operation.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they give the person all the background. They'll give the person all of the family movies, and they'll have that person, like somebody like me, with what they now call eidetic memory. See, I could remember all of that person's movies, and then with my memory, people would talk about old memories or something that happened. Oh, yeah, and this and that and the other. And they would swear I was that person because I remembered all this stuff.
Right. Yeah, the screenwriter for Face Off lives here in Houston.
Yeah. A lot of the movies that are out, Hunt for Red October, came off a real deal. A lot of the movies that are out came from leaks of what's coming. So people need to be ready. And they need to back Trump 100%. I need to be in D.C. working with him to make sure that we don't miss a step. And I told him, I said, man, I'll go as a volunteer. You know, I get my medical retirement, and as long as I'm protected and I have the right protection, so I don't end up committing suicide with 2 bullets to the brain when the first one killed me. Well, you know, I don't want to be another Clinton case.
Right.
So, but you know, I have dedicated my life. I took the oath when I was a young man, and I thought about Eisenhower and all those guys and how much they gave to the country. And so I've been in this fight since I was very young. I started serving my community when I was young. They even got an award. I didn't know why all the TV cameras were there. And they were there because I got an award and another gal got an award for the 2 students in Shasta County that did the most for the county, the education program, and everything that the county had going. And I got one of those. I got the guy award, and she got the female award. But I didn't do it for awards. I did it because I love my country. I love my fellow citizens and people, and I love God. And that's why God put me here on earth. He gave me the heart for it. This is my assignment, and my reward is in heaven. That's where my treasure is.
Exactly. Yep. All right. Okay. Anything else you want to close out with on the John F. K story?
No, other than, you know, I hope everybody gets rid of the smear and fear that's been used against a lot of good people. And people need to start turning off these smear and fear programs. You know, some of these programs come up, oh, we know the truth about the Kennedy assassination. No, they don't. It's a lie. Turn it off.
Right. Yeah, no joke. Exactly. How you doing on time? I know you have an appointment coming up.
Yeah, my guy hasn't shown up yet.
Okay.
He said after lunch, so he'll probably be showing up before too long.
Okay, yeah.
We could refire a little bit later or something.
That's fine.
With him and see. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want to get interrupted because we're going hour and 45 minutes already.
Yeah, and it's a wall that's totally exposed to the weather, so we don't want the rain coming into the wall and then into the house.
Right.
So we got to get the insulation on there and then get the exterior ply on it, and then maybe get some of the Tyvek paper on it.
Okay.
So he said we should be able to do it in 4 hours, and then it'll be protected.
All right. Good. This is a 3-part series: JFK,
Yeah.
RFK.
By the way, that's what Weaponized Weather did. That's my dining room. Weaponized Weather.
Yeah. Looks like my house. And then we're going to do Edward Kennedy. If you have any questions about this video or the upcoming other 2 parts for the Kennedys, we'll do a live version with Noel
Amen.
next week, and we'll just have you on there and you can ask questions. So if you have a question, write it down, save it. We'll address all 3 of them at one time. Some other topics that we're going to talk about with Noel. Some of them have been created during this video: MK Ultra, the Warren Commission report, NSA creation, Roswell, maybe profile Jackie O and Marilyn Monroe, and the whole Rat Pack scene, Peter Lawford, tie all that together. So, yeah, look forward to having you back on again. Anything you want to close with? Anything you want to close with?
Oh, I thought you said you closed in. Basically, I welcome questions. I'm glad to answer questions, and people need to realize actually some of the most smeared people in our history were actually some of the best people smeared by the evil people, and especially from 1947 to present day.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another one in the books for Noel Benoist, and this is the Pedagogy of Noel, co-authoring a book together. So stay tuned for that. I will be going and getting my ISBN numbers today for Anne's books, the book that we're getting ready to co-author, as well as Noel's books. So thank you, sir, for being here. Go ahead and send me a text or call me when you're available again, and we'll shoot Robert F. Kennedy.
It gets dark. It gets dark about 4:30. So 4:30 or so, okay. I'll be available because it gets cold then too. So we won't be working after then.
Just hit me up. I'm going to do recordings all day.
All right.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
God bless. Appreciate you, brother.
You're more welcome. You too. All right, everybody. That's Noel Benoist, former NSA whistleblower, 13th seat for Majestic 12. If you don't know what Majestic 12 is, it's been running around here on the banner below. Go check it out. Do your own investigation. We'll also do a video just on Majestic 12 to get you guys caught up with that. You probably missed the Cyber Week sale that I had from Black Friday to the following Thursday. If you miss that sale, I'm going to do a 12 days of Christmas sale. It begins on Christmas Day and will end 12 days later. I believe it's January 6th. Okay, because that's when the 12 days of Christmas are. They aren't before Christmas like I naturally assumed, because that's kind of what it leads up to, because nobody's really singing that after Christmas, right? When it's actually supposed to be sung. So there you go. I will be doing 12 different packages. So stay tuned. If you, I'll work with you. Just be patient on that. If you have not nominated Dr. Ed Group to be a part of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, please go nominate him. The link and descriptions below. This is what you And as always, if you're looking for some mushroom therapy, you don't know anything about mushroom therapy, I encourage you to ask. If you want to ask, please send me an email at fearlessfloydpets@gmail.com, and your question will be answered. Mushroom therapy for humans, dogs, cats, as well as livestock. And I'm pretty sure that this would cover others, goats, lambs, pigs, Vietnamese potbelly pigs. Those used to be all the rage. I think they have since declined in popularity. But this is the banner. If you would like to learn more, or go ahead and purchase or repurchase your I use these products. My dog uses these products. My dog goes nuts over the Bucky Bites and the Mush Puppies. So I have both of those. I give her one a day. I alternate as a treat first thing in the morning. And yeah, she is, I'll do a video just on her and how much she likes those. Let's see here. What else do I've got? I'm going to do a promo. So if you want to peel off right now, you can peel off. If not, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 3rd edition book of Anne LaFleur's On Trust, how to create and operate 7 different trusts. We are currently co-authoring another book on trusts. My portion will just be one trust. It's very extensive. It goes into even capturing your DNA as your own property, your real DNA. So it's very extensive. Final will, testament, what happens to you if you become incapacitated, what happens to your property, who's in control, what all needs to happen. So everything is in the books. You need an ebook, softcover book. There you go. Go get that. But I'm looking forward to writing the new book. I'm not going to say I'm halfway. I'm about a third. maybe a quarter way through. And basically what I'm doing is going through and everything is updating it, grammar, spelling correction, some of the sightings, the legal sightings are from other jurisdictions. So I have to go get either the uniform, I'll just use UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. So there's commercial codes in every state. They all are titled similar, some the same, some different. Here in Texas, it's the Texas Business and Commerce Code. Some states, it's just the Commerce Codes, Business Code, et cetera, but it's all the Uniform Commercial Code. So when there's some of these sightings in this particular trust, I have to go back and get the broad spectrum to cover it. If not, I'll have to use just Texas and then advise you in the instructions that, you need to put your own jurisdictional name or whatever in there. Like this one, the Revised Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act. Did you even know that existed? I didn't until I read the trust. So I found a couple other things. Another act, another uniform, I think it was Fiduciary and Income Act. I never heard that either. So please like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell so when we do put out new videos, you are notified. Leave a comment below. If you have a question for Noel about John F. Kennedy, R.F. Kennedy, or Senator Edward Kennedy, Teddy, as he's so fondly called, save your comments or put your comments in the comments below. I will have Noel back on again Friday with the RFK, and then he will be back the following Tuesday with the follow-up and the third part of the Edward Kennedy assassination attempt and what that looked like. And then we'll dive into some other topics, and we'll do a live. We'll probably do a live on Wednesday with Noel so we can talk about all his information, his claims, his statements. I look forward to that. All right, let me dive right into this. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. Hang on. Sorry about that. This is going to show you the second edition, but the third edition's already out. This is it right here. They're already sealed, ready to go, ready to mail out. So this is what the third edition looks like. I need to update the video. I just haven't yet. So it's going to show you volume 2, which is actually 2 of these that I used to self-publish, print here in my own house. And then I got a printer. Now it's 1 volume. That's what the third edition is. So the new book that'll come out will be a completely different cover, different color. So it will look different. So you'll be able to see the difference between the 2. And another update we talked about, remember the dots. Okay. These things. People were giving them different names. I'm focusing on these. There, let me just take the tape off, get it out. Here you go. Basically, that's what they look like now when they come to you. So to write what it is on there and then cut this little or tear this little sticker off and then put it in an envelope and write on the envelope and tape it closed, that's way too labor intensive. So we're trying to streamline it. I will get on that hopefully today with those folks. and get that moving. So they will be custom dots. They're not going to be just circles. There will be an image, something you can easily recognize, whatever that looks like, whether it's a heart, pair of lips, a diamond, a shamrock, an alien head. I don't know, but I'll get it for you. So anyway, let's dive in over here to the book. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. And as you see in front of me, we have Anne LaFleur's second edition, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And we're going to go through the table of contents. Show you exactly what's in these two volumes. What we're looking at right now is the table of contents from the upcoming 2025 third edition, which will be nothing but the combining of Volume 1 and Volume 2 into one singular volume. So this is what you're looking at here. And this is a work in progress. I'm still looking for another publisher. But basically what comes in, you have the cover page, you have an advertising page, Library of Congress certification, title page, dedication forward, and then you have the Revocable Living Trust. And this is all the stuff that's available in there. You guys can see this. This book is available at thefearlessfloydshow.com/store. Ebooks are available. The softcover books are available, or both. Or you can get a package, the books in a class or classes, whatever you want to take. Again, everything is available over at the fearlessfloydshow.com website. If you need to reach me about any questions concerning this, you can always reach me at thefearlessfloydshow@yahoo.com. And I'm catching up to some of you guys. So if you've emailed me or texted me, I'm getting to you. I've just had tons of texts and emails to deal with regarding my accident last month. I mean, insurance companies, doctors, physical therapy, repair shop. It's just been a whirlwind of emails, phone calls, and texts. I have to go through all my text and knock off all the garbage out of there. There are a minimum of 7 different trusts in here, as you see: revocable, irrevocable, foreign, charitable remainder trust, college education trust, express trust, land trust, and here we are at the end. Also has a fee schedule in there. And there you go. Those are the table of contents for these books. And again, these books are available. Fearless Floyd Show. The website, very easy to find. When you get here, if you want to email me, you just click on Email Fearless. right here. Trust classes, trust books, merchandise. Coming in 2025, the third edition. As you see, revocable, irrevocable, foreign, charitable, remainder, express, college education, and land trusts. All you do is click on that. It'll take you right over to the store. And there you go. I need to change that cover today on that. And then here's the classes. These are the packages that I was telling you about, where you get the book and classes. You want to do something that I don't offer, something a la carte, all you got to do is email me, thefearlessfloydshow@yahoo.com. And there you go. There you have it. That's what it looks like. Table of contents for Ann LaFleur's On Trust book. It's the first and last book on trust you'll ever need for you and your family. Like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. Yeah, hang on, Woody. Hang on, Woody. All right. There you go. There you have it. I'm on the phone with my buddy in jail. Imagine that. So, again, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. If you want to reach me, the Fearless Floyd Show at yahoo.com. The fearlessfloydshow.com is my website. I am the Fearless Floyd Show across every social media platform. Mainly I hang out over on Telegram, so come find me over there if you want to play in social media. Thank you for watching. I'll see you Wednesday with a special guest. We'll talk about the private side. I'll probably have multiple guests on that day, so stay tuned. That'll be an interesting show. Look forward to having Noel back on the following Friday to talk about RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, and then we will follow up the following Tuesday with Senator Edward Kennedy, and then we'll do a live on that Wednesday where you can ask questions and interact with Noel and pick his brain from a former NSA whistleblower, 13th seat from Majestic 12. Thank you, everybody, for watching.